think if she had her way about it, she probably would have passed it, you know. I don't know, that's just my opinion.
Right.
But in for that, like I say, I blame myself a lot, although I don't know. Maybe she just was not sexually concerned. You know, there are people like that. I mean, sex is not a big thing with them at all. And so she might have been that way. But, so anyhow, I was the other way. I mean, I had pretty strong sex urges, and but I wasn't that satisfied, and as a result they weren't. So I was climbing the walls too on that thing, from the other standpoint. But anyhow, I don't think that in itself was the cause of our divorce 19 years later. We had a lot of good times together. We did a lot of things. We had a lot of fun. We raised 4 great girls and lived fairly well. We weren't rich, and in fact we were quite poor there during the latter parts of the Depression. We knew what it was to be poor. But once I got working at Lockheed in 1940 and 40, things picked up for us, and we were doing quite well from that time on, you know, and better than I'd ever expected to get, as a matter of fact. So money ceased to be a consequence, and in spite of living better from that standpoint, why our relationship was, Helen didn't want to hit the kids when they were bad. I was raised up, I got spanked. Whenever I did anything wrong, I got spanked, you know, and I appreciate every spanking I got, because you're talking about building a character. That had a lot to do with it. Yeah, and, or punished in one way or another, you know.
Yeah.
But she would yell at him. She would yell at him, and for the slightest things. And they just cower, and pretty soon they didn't cower, they just got used to it. But they got used to it. I didn't. I just couldn't stand it. And I think of anything, any one thing that destroyed the marriage, it was that yelling, you know, all the time. I remember coming home during the war. We were living in a double house, and of course you didn't have any gas, so you rode with somebody. You know, share the ride. And I remember coming home one afternoon in the summer when all the windows were open, and the car was full of people. I was the first one they let off. There were about 5 other people, friends of mine from work and everything else, in the car. And the first thing we heard when they stopped was she screaming at these kids inside the house. And boy, I'll tell you, I just fell through the floor. It was awful. And but on the other hand, that was her biggest fault in my estimation. But she can tell you where I had a lot of big faults too. And among other things, later on in our life, when I left and lived with a friend of mine, Hal Hunter, for a period of a few months, just while I was at Lockheed, early in Lockheed. I just couldn't handle that. And
when was that?
And pardon?
Was that in that same period, like during
Yeah,
the war?
that was during the war. It was during the war. And then I left again after the war when I had my business over in Hollywood. I left for a whole year. Didn't live at home. I lived at my office. I cooked on a little cooker in my bathroom. And in those days, I tried talking to the Lord. I prayed at my bathtub every night that something might happen, this marriage of ours, besides shattering. And so anyhow, I was over there a year, and I would go home and stay with the kids at night, you know, and until I went to bed, and then I'd leave. And I hated to leave. I hated to leave. I just wanted to put my head back in the chair and sleep, because I worked hard. I really worked hard in those early days of my business, and I was always tired. And so anyhow, then I finally went back home. Here's another nice thing about her. After being gone a year, one day, one Monday morning, I remember waking up sick, really sick. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was at the office, and I woke up and I was feeling horrible, and I had to go clear down to Long Beach on a job. And I go outside and it's raining, all like mad, and I go in the back and here is my car with a flat tire.
Oh.
Everything was wrong. And I just feel horrible, but I remember, or do I? But I must have. I put the tire, got the tire fixed, and instead of driving to Long Beach, I drove over home. I needed somebody. And she took me in and put me to bed, and I stayed in that bed, I think, about 3 or 4 days. I was completely out. The only thing I remember was getting jabbed with a needle every so often. I just had a nervous breakdown, I guess. And so anyhow, finally I came out of that about a week. And I was so thankful for her, because she nursed me just like a baby, you know, and I remember she fed me orange juice. I took a lot of orange juice. I don't remember eating anything for quite a period. But I was in bad shape. And she took care of me. And so then I came back home again. Or she had me back, let's say. I mean, out of the goodness of her heart, she said, come on back, you know. She should have kicked me back out. So there's a lot of good and bad on both sides of the fence. But she was proud of me, and that always made me feel good. I played lousy piano like I do now, but to her, it probably sounded pretty good. I remember we were over at some friends of ours in the church, the Baker family, and I sat down at the piano and I started playing piano. And I can hear her in the background. She says, he never took a note in his life. Did it all by himself. Which gave me a lot of ego, you know. And I appreciated that. And we loved to dance together. We could really dance together. We danced what was then called the Indiana Hop. And that started, I think, one of the places it started was in that O. Henry Park that we played back in the earlier days. Because we had so many people in there. Here we digress, but this is worth it.
That's fine.
We had so many people in there at night that they couldn't move. They couldn't dance around like this. They had to stay in one place. And they had a little hop that they'd hop up and down with the rhythm like this. That's called the Indiana Hop. And it's fun, but it was born due to the fact that you couldn't move. You couldn't get around. That floor was crowded with people. And so anyhow, we did the Indiana Hop and loved it. And we did it very well. We were really great and enjoyed it. And she was a good dancer. Of course, that's how I met her. She was a dancer when it was dancing at the ballrooms when I first met her. As we already know, don't we?
Yeah.
Let's see, what else can I tell you?
You kind of went off there.
Yeah, well, I know, but I wanted to get that dancing in there because I always loved that Indiana Hop, and we did it well. Well, first we had Joanne in 1935. I was still in the band then, and in Chicago. And she was born at Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago. And she weighed 8 3/4 pounds. And she was Helen was in labor for a long time. In fact, she went in thinking that she had labor, and they found out, no, it was just false labor pains or something, so she went back home for another couple of days or so, and then went back. And then I think the thing went on for 16, 18 hours before the baby was finally born. And she had an awful time. And but the baby was fine, and after the birth, Helen came back all right, everything. Back in those days, every woman was in the hospital for 10 days after a birth. And so she spent her 10 days in there, and after she got out of that one, she was okay. Nowadays, they're much shorter. They found out it did more damage than good because some of those scars and so forth, what do? They stick together, you know, if there's not some movement. There's a term for it, but I can't think of it. And anyhow, another thing about her that was great. I mean, she never complained of not having any money, like when we were poor through the Depression there. And things were rough, and she went out and got a job as a waitress. She was a good waitress. I don't know where she learned that, because prior to that, the only work that I knew that she did was in department stores, you know, waiting on
Right.
customers and
Yeah.
so forth. I don't know where she got her talent as a waitress, but she certainly had it, because she always made good money and worked. Later on, she worked in the best of restaurants. She was in the Brown Derby, the crowning jewel of L.A. County. She was one of the waitresses down there. And as a result of saving money that she made down there, she bought the grand piano for my birthday,
Oh.
and which is now in Bonnie's custody. She has it in Virginia. And so she did well. And so, like I say, after I got my job at Lockheed, I didn't make an awful lot of money. As a matter of fact, I think for a while she was making more than I was down there at Brown Derby than I was making at Lockheed. And so we had a little more money. There I'm digressing again. This is the way my mind goes, you know. It floats all over the place.
That's good though.
And well, as long as you like it.
I like it.
And I have no trouble with it. But let me see, what else can I tell you?
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please. Please do. I need help.
You said that there's certain things that Grandma could say about you. What do you think Grandma would say about you, good and bad?
That I was
This
unfaithful
is-
to her. That would be the biggest thing she could say. And she'd be right, I was. Other than that, well, I think one of the things that aggravated her, she was a very precise type of woman. Things had to be done at the specific time, and everything in its place, you know, continuity and so forth. And well, in most ways, I don't know where she got that, because the family that she was in, where she lived, and when I first knew her, was pretty loose, happy-go-lucky. You know, it wasn't that, and I don't know where she got that, but she finally did. And where on the other hand, I was loose as a goose. You know, if I don't do it now, I'll do it later. You know, and one of the big conflicts. This will illustrate how these conflicts happen. I would come home from work, and I'm keyed up. You know, because like I say, I'm kind of a busy lifestyle.
Right.
And high key. And I didn't want to eat, so for a while there, I would sit down at the piano and I just rattle off some tunes and just play along, whatever came to mind. The kids used to love that. They still tell me about how nice it sounded when it was. Well, they didn't have the ear for music that they have now.
They didn't know better.
That's right. But anyhow, in addition to pleasing the kids, and I guess Helen too, because like I told you, she bragged about it. It relaxed me, and it got me in the mind to eat, for example. Otherwise, if I go in there all keyed up, yum, 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 you know, like that, and say, end up with stomach trouble.
Right.
But if I could relax, then I could go in and I could handle dinner in the normal way. And so anyhow, I would sit there playing the piano, and she would be getting dinner ready. And all of a sudden she'd say, "Dinner's ready." And if I didn't stop right then and come in there, she'd be on my back until I did. I mean, I couldn't even finish the chorus I was playing. I mean, now I come, see? And the same way with the kids. I mean, the minute she said dinner's ready, bingo, get in there, you know. And the same way after dinner, you know, I like to sit around and relax a little bit and talk with the kids and everything else, but no, there was no time for that. You had to get the dishes off the table, clean, everything else. They had their jobs to do and everything else, and so here I am with an empty table. So I go do something else too. And I used to resent that. This is the way some little things like that can disrupt a marriage, you know. Probably if we had talked about it and said, look, what difference does it make if we talk for 15 minutes? The dishes aren't going away.
Right.
But we never did that. We just choked up and hated every minute of it, you know, and didn't talk it out. We could have gotten over a lot of humps if we had decided to talk, but we just had the mad on for each other, and that's what happened. But anyhow, like I say, I think the thing that bothered her most was the fact that I was unfaithful to her. And it bothered me too. And, but I don't know, I was a virile guy, and I wasn't any different than anybody else, and there wasn't the feminine companionship, let alone sex. I'm talking about just companionship at home. I resented going home. I wanted to go home because of the kids, but I'd get off of work at night, you know, and I think most people say, boy, I'm going home to relax. I didn't feel that way. I said, gee, is there any place I can go? And I'm trying to think of, so many times I'd go back over to the office, fool around then. This may...
Well, it seems like that kind of stuff is, I mean, you've mentioned it, it always kind of comes back to the lack of communication.
Yeah, that's true. It was, I wouldn't say it's completely lack of communication. I just say we didn't give it a chance. I don't think that communication could have done a lot of good. It might have gotten us out of certain problems. But there was the biggest difference was the difference in character between your grandmother and me. I mean, she was just precise, go, go, go type. And I was laid back and moved in a slower, not necessarily slower, because I was a goer in my work particularly. And I think I was otherwise. I can remember when we built that house on Sunset Canyon Drive. The ground in front ran down to the street, and then the house was leveled, and then it went clear up like that. See, we were on a hill. So I decided what I wanted to do was to dig out that back and level it. See, like that, and put a wall along there, which I did, and take all that out and fill in around the front of the house, so the house was on a higher level and then curved down, see, so it wouldn't be great up to the, it'd be come up like this, and then there, and here's the house, and then back here, and then up this way. Well, that was a great idea, but I can't tell you, I can't begin to tell you the days off that I spent wheeling that dirt around in a wheelbarrow. Shoveling, taking it around, dumping it, doing it, back and forth, back and forth. And many of the days that I did that was on Sunday. And here I am sweating with a pair of shorts on and a pair of sneakers on and going back and forth, and here's all the church people down the next door looking down at me, thinking what a booby is on Sunday. It's not a work day, fella. But anyhow, it had to be done, and that was the only day I could do it. But so I had a lot of gumption. I wasn't lazy by any means.
No, I understand. I can totally relate.
But the thing is that in my private life, I didn't want to be in a hurry.
Yeah.
It's just like sitting there playing the piano and just drooling around with the piano and things like that. That's the way I like to relax. And she wouldn't give me that opportunity, see. And then we had another argument over the raising of the kids. This was after Joanne and Nancy were almost teenagers. And Vicki and Bonnie were just still quite young.
Right.
Along comes Dr. Spock. And Dr. Spock had everybody believing that they never touch your children. Never discourage their need to experiment and to do their thing. And he ruined 3 generations. He sold millions and millions of these books. And she became an addict of his. And we had done such a great job up to that time with Joanne and Nancy.